Hello and welcome to the I3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography program at the School of Visual Arts. We are thrilled to have photographer Matt Carr as tonight's guest speaker. Matt earned a degree in photojournalism and philosophy religious studies from Ball State University. At the outset of his career, he worked for newspapers and wire services, AP, Reuters, and Getty Images, for a number of years. After moving to Prague in the early 90s, Matt transitioned into editorial and corporate work. 6 years later, he moved to London before eventually returning to the US. His photography has been published extensively in the New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, ESPN, GQ, Men's Health, Premiere, and Rolling Stone, among others. And he has been recognized by American Photo, Hasselblad Masters, PDN, IPA, and Communication Arts. Please help me welcome Matt Carr to our lecture series.
Thank you very much. That was pretty much my speech, I think. Yeah, I'm a commercial photographer now. My work is very varied. I do almost a bit of everything. Just as an example, the last 2 weeks I did 3 jobs, corporate portrait jobs, 1 inside book, children's book illustrations that they're going to do characters on top of, and I did a series of wrist portraits for Timex, those people. So it's always changing. It's the main thing. Anyways, thanks for coming. So my career has changed considerably over the years. I started off in journalism school and newspapers, and now I do none of that. It's not even remotely the same, but it has been 30 years to turn that boat to where we are today. So to go way back, in high school I had two things I was good at, English and photography. And so I had a guidance counselor told me, why don't you try photojournalism? And that was good enough for me. So we'll start off with this is some schoolwork that actually got me my first job in newspapers. It was a story on poverty in America. This is Muncie, Indiana, at Ball State, which at the time was a pretty depressed area. And being an extremely poor student, I was living in even the worst area. So I was actually living upstairs from these people. And everyone around me was just in pretty extreme poverty. This is the photo that I'd taken a photo of them once outside, I believe. And they didn't want me inside their house at all. They were really nervous about me. But I took this photo and then I delivered a hand-printed 8x10, and that kind of opened the door where they trusted me, and I went inside and I got the family photo. These are very raw. In the early days, I had one camera, a Canon EF, I think it was called. Just imagine a piece of brass that they carved out and stuck a lens on it, and not much else. So it's all 50 millimeter. This is the father enjoying a cigarette on an oxygen machine right below my bedroom. Yeah, I forget all their names, but I remember this guy. His name was Snake. Fairly nice guy. Here in South Bend, I always lived in the poor side of town, usually the historic/crime district of each area. And there's some benefits for that, because all the characters, once they get to trust you, if you show them you're a real person and you're not, a narc or something, then they really open up and you can get all sorts of access. But today I'm mostly going to go, after the journalism stuff, I'm just going to show personal stuff, because I think that the work stuff is, although it's important because it keeps things going, keeps me eating and paying rent, but how I use the personal work is how I change the career to where I want it to be, or it also shows just what I care about. And I think the more you learn about that, the more you can kind of base your work stuff on. You just find out, what does it mean to be me? So this is a very early newspaper portfolio. This is a train conductor who was also a fine artist. So in school, I took all the photojournalism classes, and I just felt like there was something I was missing. I thought maybe the art department knows something that we don't. So I went over there and I took all their classes, and I didn't find it there either. But I did find that it was much more experimental. You're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to get wacky and weird. And that's a great lesson to learn, even if you go back into newspapers and you're just going to have these regimented photos. Oh, this is Bob might remember this. This guy in the middle here worked with me at the time. But we did a 24-hour story about this diner, this really old school diner. And we took like 4-hour shifts. We just hang out and photograph whatever happened. This guy came in, I forget what he said, something fairly disgusting to the waitress, and then passed out. So I took that picture, and that was like one of the main pictures. And at the time, my mother worked at a psych hospital, and this guy checked himself in like the day after this came out. So I am helping people in my way. Yeah. This is something for a story on gun crime. That's me looking very menacing in my Dockers, right? It's easier to find a gun in Indiana for that. I think it would take like a couple weeks here to do that. Some early portrait work. I always gravitated towards the portrait work. My friend Julian up here asked if this guy got that off a dead Nazi, and I said, this is before eBay, so probably. This won some award at the time. It's one of these photos I took, just walking around taking photos for the newspaper. In case there's a slow news day, you always have to have something in the bag. And I took this, I didn't really even like it, I didn't print it. And then the photo editor saw it and he's like, print that. And then he ran it and then he's like, send that in for the thing. And then I won that thing. It's like, sometimes you just don't know at all. Sometimes you do. Yeah, I'm kind of lacking of photos in this period because it's all film and most of it's in a storage unit or stuck in the newspaper somewhere. I mean, I practically got a tetanus shot for having to find these things in the first place. This is Lou Holtz. I went to Catholic school, so this one kind of kills me. He's doing the devil horns. Got the Catholic University. It always comes back to that. It's back 1600 color film, just crunchy. Again, Catholic. I like to make the priests look weird. So newspaper is great for just getting a feel for everything. You do portraits, you do lifestyle, you do everything with no budget. There's no makeup, no nothing. But it's a great way for me to figure out like what I liked. And that it always came back to portraiture for just, I don't know if I just like the control or just the one-on-one with people. That always resonated with me. And kind of just, it became clear that was kind of one direction I needed to go into. Well, this is my one decent shot from my internship at the Indianapolis 500. I was working for Reuters, and they put me on turn 2, and they said, don't take a picture unless there's an accident for the whole month. And one day I snuck into the pits and took some pictures. But from school, I managed to get a job at this newspaper, the local paper in Muncie, Indiana, still in school, which is kind of incredible. I went in with a box of prints, not even a portfolio. I wasn't arrogant so much as clueless as to how to get a job. And I think it was that story of the family that really sold me to them. And so they brought me in. I didn't even bother asking how much it paid. All those things I thought I was missing in school, I quickly learned at the newspaper because I was just on my own. Well, first off, there are 6 other photographers. Each one of them took me in the darkroom to show me how to develop film, even though I had obviously known how to do that. But they were just like, I was under everyone's wing. And everyone did it slightly different, but it was finally a place where they could teach me all that stuff that I thought I knew, but I clearly didn't, because to have deadlines and have just to have to be back in 1 hour and have something printed in another hour that's going to go in paper, otherwise there's going to be a hole, is kind of, you learn quickly. And that job lasted for about a year, until just before graduation, and then the first signs of digital came in, which was the AP Leaf Desk, the Associated Press Leaf Desk scanner. And once that came in, that just took away the need for printing and took away the need for 2 photographers, and I was one of them. So I stuck around long enough to learn the thing, which is good and bad. But so the next time I got a job, I could at least say, oh, I know how to work all the machines. And I was the young guy back then who knew all the electronic stuff, so I was the go-to guy. So after that, ended up at South Bend, at the South Bend Tribune, newspaper where I worked for a couple years with this guy over here. We both had long ponytails, big foreheads, big nose. They thought we were the same person. They'd be like, hey, Bob, great photo. I'd be like, thanks. I'm sure they would say the same to you all the time, right? All the time. So I worked there a couple years, and it was great. The newspaper was wonderful. And 2 years into that, I was talking with a friend who moved to Germany, and she's like, the flights out here are $400. And I was like, I have $400. So I just bought a ticket, and 3 months later, I just put all my stuff in storage, brought 2 cameras, that's portfolio you saw, and some ill-fitting 90s clothing, like the baggy sweater. And I was in Europe for 3 months, hoping not to come home with that portfolio. And I ended up at, there was an English language newspaper in Prague called the Prague Post. And the photo editor said, you can't make a living at it, but if you want to try, come back and work for me. So I came back and just fell in love with it. The city was, everything was like crumbling, everything was broken, no one spoke English. The government was in flux. It was just like a city trying to find its own feet, which is kind of my life story as well. I think so. It was just like comfortable to live there. End up learning the language and just about the people and all the politics, and it was just fascinating. Every day was just something different. And coming from Indiana to a town that has a castle is just ridiculous. I live in a town with a castle. So I stayed there. This is actually a job. This is an anarchist rally. They had their own brush with hardcore right-wing politics at the time, and the skinheads are behind me in the shot. But a lot of these are just photos I took. I ended up buying a Leica and just carrying that every day. This is like pre-Instagram. This was actually a job. They were swearing in the army up on the Zhivkov monument, and the city didn't like it, so the city called the police to tell the police to stop the army from doing this. And I was like, I gotta see this. I don't think it was even a job. It was just like, I want to see the army take on the police. Nothing happened, of course, but clearly there's no, I'm wandering among the soldiers. There's almost no rules there, I felt, which is fun. Until you start thinking there's no rules, I can do anything, and then it becomes not so fun. So these are just a collection of personal photos. I would just roll through black and white, like a couple rolls a week. And I just wanted to tell like my story there and the Prague that was there when I got there, because things are changing so quickly. I wanted to kind of put this thing in aspect and like keep it the way it was before it became a McDonald's and a Disney World. This must have been a job. That's not like a photo. This is underneath the Prague Castle. This is the bunker built in the 50s when they thought we were going to bomb them. So at the time I was shooting a lot of newspaper and just cranking this stuff out. And then at some point, a friend of mine who was working at Elle magazine invited me to take a portrait of an actress that he was doing a story on. So I went, happily, and photographed this woman at this beautiful cafe, and brought it in. The photo editor, art director liked it, and then they brought me in for the next thing and the next thing, and within a year, I was Elle magazine's portrait guy, and I did the what's in your handbag and like all those things you can imagine, except from the fashion pages. Nobody from Indiana does fashion. It's a lesson to you. But so it was a trial by fire, because I didn't know anything about lighting. Everything I'd done before was all very on-camera flash or just natural light. So I got into the Elle Studios, which was just this massive room. By the time they were just starting out, so they had just one giant flash, looked like something out of the Apollo mission, one of those with the plugs that don't make sense anymore, and just some bounce things. So I'd go in there and try to like bounce light around as much as I could, just off this one head, which was a fantastic learning experience. I mean, everything kind of had that look, which I think is coming back, the one giant. But I learned tons about lighting and about working with art directors and designers and how to, they would bring me a spread of this blank piece of paper with the headline, the words, and some other stuff they need in there, and they'd say, okay, your photo's got to fit in this area here, and the direction is going that way. And I said, okay, I got to do that. So I went from like the loosey-goosey world of newspaper to this kind of hardcore, you got to please this guy or you're never going to work again. So my portfolio just got more and more art directed, became less about me. Not that it was very much about me before, but I was starting to get the idea that I need to make this thing more personal. So let me just roll through here. They're opening the first Catholic church in 40 years. And look at those smiles. The church is. This is a moment at the circus. It's my favorite pub. We called it the Dirty Finger. It didn't really have a real name, but Dirty Finger stuck somehow. This is actually in Poland. This is my Instagram before Instagram. You know, this is what everyone does now. Then it was kind of a novelty. Hare Krishna, having a good day. It's Václav Havel and some German foreign minister. I just love the arrow up in this corner, bringing your eye back into a circle. I'm not sure if the beer is larger than that due to the lens distortion, but I like to think that's the size of it. They were ordaining 2 new bishops at the main cathedral in Prague, and they had the photographers up on this scaffolding. It was a very pious occasion. I mean, there were tons of priests, 2 of them, prostrate on the ground. And I turn around and I got Iggy Pop staring at me. And it's like, this is the guy. And his expression says it all. He's like, not very happy with that one. That's Václav Klaus, the former prime minister. That's his classic smug look. He was the president for a while later. After he was thrown out for corruption, he came back as president. There's the aforementioned castle. It's my only picture of the castle here. Later on, right before I left Prague, I did the timeout guide for Prague. So I got to do all the touristy pictures in blazing color. Because Prague, it's an amazingly colorful city, but I chose black and white because I didn't want any noises in the background, Coke signs or any advertisements that were creeping in to get in the way of what I was trying to show. Like it might be a beautiful old person, but then in the background there'd be somebody wearing spandex or something. You're killing my photo. I mean, these days you could just Photoshop it away, but not back then. This is, again, Václav Klaus at a rally. Not very, pretty light security. Just a moment. That's real. All this is real. I didn't start really talking to people in street portraits until later. This is Michael Jackson came to town and he erected a 30-foot or 30-meter statue of himself right on the same pedestal where Stalin used to stand, the statue of Stalin. Yeah. It's weird. Perfectly normal. No parking here. There's the Prague Post in the corner. It doesn't exist anymore. I think it was a tax write-off for some wealthy Texan. He would come in occasionally and yell at us for spending too much money. This is the night train to Russia. It's like, do you speak Czech? No. You speak English? No. It's like, okay, I'm just going to start taking pictures. It's with a 14. This one I thought I was being discreet. I was using an RB67, which is not a very discreet camera. Big clunky thing. And I was like, I totally snuck up on this guy. And then I was looking at the context later, and there's 4 pictures of him scowling at me. He's like, okay, maybe not so sneaky. Like this kind of, at the time, everything was kind of crusty. It was coming back from communism. They hadn't repaired stuff, but had that kind of patina. It was still soft. Everything was soft. The anniversary of the liberation of Pilsen. Know your history. Germans lost. So that's where you stand in front of the Germans. This is at another Sladek rally, which is he was kind of the hardcore right wing. I was working with a German guy at the time, and he was like, "This stuff sounds very familiar." Oh man. Okay. I was waiting for about 20 minutes to photograph this guy. He every time I'd lean over and try to take his picture, he would just give me the scowl. And I was like, "Ooh," and I'd just try again and again, and finally I gave up and I stood up, and he raised his camera and took my picture, and then put it down and just gave me that, and I was like, "Ugh." I was like, "Thank you." I was like looking at myself in the future. It's my old neighborhood. This is kind of an example of what I was talking about, shooting black and white. The car behind it is some new Citroen, kind of nasty, if we had 2 Škodas in a row, that would be beautiful. It still bugs me. This is in the bunker underneath the Prague Castle. That's the technology at the time. There's that and boxes of bones. No champagne, no. It's really, Turbine. Yeah. Any questions about any of these things? I was using the cheapest film available, Filmabon. 60 crowns, or the Tri-X equivalent, was 120. No way. 60 crowns. Vola is it's impolite to say to somebody you don't know, but polite, semi-polite to say to somebody you do know. I'll leave it at that. This is one of the a lot of the communist statues were coming down. This is a war memorial, but I believe it's still there. Let's see. I like this guy. So this is a story. This is after six years in Prague. I was a very big fish in a very small pond. Things were going really well. I was doing like covers and spreads and working all the time. I didn't have a portfolio. I didn't need a portfolio. But there's kind of a glass ceiling of how much you can make there, which is not very much. Like an Elle magazine, a full page would be $20. And the film budget is 2 rolls of 120, and an RB, that's 10 photos, and like 3 Polaroids. So a little restricting. And I thought, if I can go somewhere else and do 40% of this work, and I'd be the man. I'd be perfectly happy. So I just moved to London. I didn't look into immigration. I didn't read anything about it. I just shipped my stuff and moved to London. Is there a little pattern emerging? Don't worry, I'm married. I've got a child now. I can't leave. I'm stuck here. So I moved to London, and it was here that I showed up, and I had this portfolio that was mostly made of clips from Prague, from heavily art-directed shoots for magazines, which I don't like anymore, which is also why I'm not showing them. It was a great training ground, but as a portfolio, it just looks schizophrenic. It was just there was portraits, there was lifestyle, there was, different stories about random things in black and white and color, and there wasn't any cohesive unit to them at all. So it was when I went to London, big town like New York, that I realized that you have to, they ask you, what do you do? And they mean it. They're like, you do portraits, and what's the style when you say that? Or you do lifestyle, and what's the style when you say that? So I got there, and I had that book, and I had my small black and white book, which strangely enough got me, it was the black and whites that you saw before. Like all that stuff got me more attention than the other books. But I think having them both kind of helped people see that I'm not, entirely a freak, that I can do a job, but I also have some kind of soul on the other side. So it was in London that I decided, I need to find a style that's me, that makes sense to me. So if somebody hires me and they want Matt Carr, then I will know what that means. So by this time I switched to Hasselblad, which is one of the smartest things I ever did. So, you ever use Hasselblad? Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Beautiful. Anyways, so this is the Natural History Museum, the entomology department. This is sort of right before they tore the building, or tore the department down and redid it to make it more open to the public. I went in there and I did portraits of all the entomologists so that we'd have a record of this thing as it existed in the time, which is amazing. Because they have stuff from Captain Cook's days, and so I went in there with this kind of style in mind, and the entomologists were just not having any of it. They didn't want any of it. They're scientists. They didn't care about any of this. So I managed to talk one guy into it. This guy. And I photographed him like a king. He's lit like a god. If you're looking up at him a little bit, those cockroaches this is a wide angle, but they are pretty darn big. And then you show the Polaroids around, and the next thing I know, people, they were lining up. It was great. It's I'm here to make it look cool, not we're not going to nerd out. So one of the fun things I find is bringing out kind of the character in people and making it seem like they're part of the process. I'm not just barking orders at them. She was great. I made the mistake of telling the writer who was writing the story that we were going to photograph her, and I was like, can you see if she could put on a lab coat? I just really like women in lab coats. That's a weird thing. And then I went to photograph her, and she's very English, very polite. And I said, do you have a lab coat? And she goes, yes, I've been informed of your fetish. It's not a fetish, it's just, I think it would be cool. So never tell writers anything. This guy was just rock and roll. This is just two lights, obviously. Like just one is bearing down. I'm still learning about the subtleties of light, but I think they still kind of work. Well, there's one story. When I started showing the schizophrenic book with the black and white book around, I did get one art director who, she asked me to do a series of portraits of these people who had severe memory loss through like accidents or brain issues, and she wanted to just a really heartfelt series of black and white portraits of these people in their homes to tell the story. And she said on the phone, I want you to do it, I want Matt Carr photos. And she was talking about the black and white stuff. And I was like, I said, yes, I will take this job because I like to eat, I need the money. And then later on, I freaked out for the whole weekend thinking like, what is the Matt Carr style in the black and white? I didn't even know what it was in any portraiture at all. So that just made me think about what it means, like how I do things and why I do things and the choices I make. And I came up, I did it all in black and white with a small Leica, just natural light, raw, in their homes, just in that journalistic style, but kind of, doing a lot more talking. It's always just, whenever I do portraits, I just talk a lot to people and ask a lot of questions and get a lot of, back and forth, so they're part of the process. So that was like a defining moment in my life, my work life at least, that I really kind of said, I need to put this thing in a box and make it make sense. Otherwise, I'll be dragged around by whatever job comes next, and I won't be in charge of my career. So now we're in New York, where a lot of my art director friends and friends in general came after 3 years in London, and somehow or another got work at the New York Times within the first couple months. It was the special sections, and they hired me to do some reportage stuff on the Harlem Celebrates issue. And I was like, okay, that sounds nice, but how about we do street portraits instead and show like the people who live there and that kind of the culture of that. And they're like, okay, but do them both for the same fee. But so anyways, I went around and just one assistant with one light and just talked to people on the street, which became more and more, that's my whole job, is talking to people that I don't know. That's just, it's fun, it's exhilarating, it's intimidating, it's scary, it's everything, but it's most of the job, talking to them, getting them relaxed and getting something out of them. This person was just crossing the street, and I grabbed him. These people were just sitting on the stoop, just sure. New York Times opened the doors. Or Time Out too. For this Harlem Celebrates, so I just went around and shot a mess of street portraits, and I did the reportage as well. But I felt the main brunt of it, the story really was in the people, So
how long would you keep work with each person? Can you repeat that?
Oh, and each person? It depends on the person. Like some people, like these guys, probably pretty quick because they were just hanging out, and I just got them laughing really. This guy, a couple minutes. More than celebrities to give you, but and this is all film too. This is so like I would maybe do less than a roll of film on each person, kind of like 5 pictures. That's how we used to do it. I'm going to take 5 pictures now. But yeah, like a bit of time, 10, 15 minutes maybe. Mm-hmm. So this is deeper in New York. This is within the last 5 years. At this point, I've established a portfolio that's all me, and basically adding to it, but trying to up everything to look more like an ad. So this is my friend and neighbor, George, who's like a local character. Fantastic guy. He's got 3 teeth. He's dead now, but super nice guy. And I just needed to take a portrait of him, so I brought him up to my house. I set up a time. I was like, can you come over at 2? Like, 2 o'clock. He's there, and I'm just trying desperately to get him to smile because he's just got this great smile. He's got 3 teeth in his head, and he's just a fantastic character. So I get this, and then And I was like, I need more. Because I like to work, do spreads in the portfolio of two shots of each person, like little diptychs of sorts. So one day we'd take him down to Coney Island for a day. Well, actually, he would give me less time than the celebrity. This guy was tough. He'd be honest. He had like a schedule to keep. And I shot bubbles at his face one day. He enjoyed that. This is him in my house. Then I did a little show of him at his local cafe where he goes and gets coffee every day. And, 4 photos is not going to make a show, so I went a little further. There's this one as well, which he remembered this fog being there, but it was not a foggy day. This is all Photoshop. He's like, remember that time we were on the bridge and it was that orange haze? And I was like, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't feel like you always have to contradict people, So I did this. Like the background wasn't working, and I said he was in the Korean War. I thought there's some kind of to make him a little bit more of an icon. And then Pixel George, just to round out the set. And at the show, it's just a small cafe in my neighborhood. You would see the photos, and at the end there'd be George sitting at the chair to tell you a really off-color joke. I mean, really, he could go for it. Some more personal work. A lot of the stuff I do just to stay relevant, like in the ad world, and try to get some attention. So this is a series I did. I have a 6-year-old daughter, but when she was 4, we were playing the game where you kind of laugh and then you stop laughing. And she was just amazingly good at fake laughing. And I thought that came later. When you're older, we learn how to fake everything in society. But apparently you'd start really young. So I invited these 2 friends of mine. They were like, I've photographed this kid since he was born, literally, the day he was born. A friend of mine, this kid. I used to shoot a lot of stock photography, and I would photograph everything and throw it on stock and maybe make some money off it. So I got him and his sister to come, and they were just banged it out of the park, no problem, no questions asked. Like, what do you want me to do? Okay, boom, where's my juice? And then I thought, round it out, bring in some more regular people. I'm still hoping Colgate will buy this for something. But I just had people just generate a fake laugh and just roll with it and just keep laughing, and that turns into a real laugh, and some people found it like very therapeutic. And this is all with the Hasselblad Digital, with a phase 1 back and a 50 millimeter, so pretty wide. I'm pretty close. This guy's nuts. That's my wife. This guy loved it. He thought it was like yoga. He's a professional model from Madrid. He was just in town, and he just came in my living room and laughed his ass off for an hour. It was hilarious. This guy, we'll see him again later. This is really bad rendering. This is another story. This is about, I just got to thinking about people were worried about the government and about, UFOs, and, they do the tinfoil thing. Like, they must have a life, right? What do? They're not just quirks. They have daily schedules and stuff. So I did this one in a friend's house, and because I didn't want to mess up my house. And then I thought maybe he's married, maybe he's got a wife, and I was like, what's she like? She's sorry, that other photo is a horrible rendering, but she must support him. Maybe she's the same way. Maybe she just does it because he likes it, and then maybe she's looking for answers in the Jiffy Pop. I don't know, but it's like thinking of things like that and then following the storyline to my own, messed up ends. There might be a third one coming in that where they have a child, but I don't know. It gets a little too funky. This is a series I did, kind of ripping off Robert Longo, as so many people like to do. I thought I'd take it one step further. I loved his paintings, and then he went back and photographed them, and I felt like he missed it. So I was like, I'll finish it up for you, Robert. And so I photographed the models in the studio, and I went around looking to shoot plates in New York City and Brooklyn that kind of made sense to me. There's a series of them. These are dancers. These are actually the dancers where my daughter goes to school, dance school. It's fun to make dancers do things that aren't natural to them. So, dance, like jump around like you're totally out of balance. So after trying to shoot plates for a while, I was working with a retoucher, and he's like, we're both like, this isn't working. So I just literally, I went on Getty, and looked for cityscapes and found all these Asian cities that were just so beautiful and perfect. And that's Spain, I believe, Balboa. I just plugged and played with that, and kind of became an art director of my own shots. I kind of like that. It's nice not having to worry about doing the plates as well. So this is more personal work that goes in the portfolio that, hopefully gets some ad attention, That is Ed Harris. Yes. A lot of these celebrities are either for magazines. Like I used to work with Premiere Magazine when I came to New York before they folded, and I forget the other ones. There's a bunch of them popped up, and they all. And I also worked a lot doing the film festivals for Getty. I would set up the portrait studio at Sundance in Toronto, and just through the week we just get tons of people. It's like being in a laundry dryer. It's like people at the end of the day, people say like, "Who'd you meet?" And I'm like, I'm not sure. You have to take a look through the files. But a lot of those were for instant, right out on the web to be sold. There was no photoshopping of those. So later I went back and just chose my favorites, and either I worked on myself as to my abilities, and then after a while I'm like, I got to find somebody better to give these people what they deserve, So this is working with this one retoucher in New Jersey. We wanted to put together like a little portfolio of black and white celebrities in this kind of raw, not really tintype, but maybe Polaroid 55 style where it's a little bit messed up, and give it some character, because sometimes I'd be shooting like an 8-foot box, so there wasn't much room. I could play with lighting a little bit. I would have a pocket wizard with 2 different lighting setups, like a hard one and a soft one, and for Getty Images I needed to get a clean shot with like a smile and not a smile, and then once I got them out of the way, then I could do what I wanted. And with these people, sometimes you get, seconds, sometimes you get minutes. This guy was super, super nice, but so anyways, I have just tons of people that are in this box, and I've been working on ways to bring them out of the box and make the images more relevant and more timeless. Because I had to take his gum away. He came in chewing gum. It's like, I got 30 seconds with you. Give me the gum. I should have sold it on eBay. I love this guy. He's so generous with his time. I've photographed him so many times at these festivals. Okay, so this is kind of what I like to do for fun now, street photography in New York. But this is talking to people. I call it talking to strangers in Brooklyn and posing them a little bit with some added whatnot. I love these guys. But I have this little conversation with them. I don't write anything down about them. This is all with the little Leica. This is my normal expression when I first approach them, and then I get this. Just going out there and just being open and talking to strangers is kind of, I find it kind of like practice, for when I have to do it for a job. Okay, so this is some celebrities, random stuff. This is Juno Diaz for a magazine. A lot of times with people, I give them a little direction, and I like to give them a scene that they can work through in their own heads and bring something special out of it. Clive Owen, not so much. I'll give you Clive Owen. It'll be beautiful, but he's not gonna work with you too much. This is a surprisingly happy shot of him. That's the normal him. He came in. That's a photographer's nightmare. The tonality, the white, the hair, that hat was just glowing with the light hits it, pops it. Oh my God. Yeah. This I was working with another retoucher. I had this photo's a couple years old, and I just really liked it, but it needed something, and I just wanted to. I wrote these guys down. I was like, can you make him look like he's in a church window or something? Really iconic, and they, and then they came up with this King of Kings thing, which is a bit much, but he was in his whole jaw phase at that time. This guy would not take any direction, but he was cool. This is him after he's fluffing his hair. That's genuine irritation from Tommy Lee Jones. That's right. Okay. One magazine asked me to do a series of photos about home, where I grew up, which is, middle America. We all have memories of childhood, which kind of don't always make sense to you. So I took some of these memories and I kind of ran it through a Jim Thompson filter, if you know Jim Thompson, the pulp fiction writer, and obscured them enough where they wouldn't make sense to other people, but maybe would be interesting. Like this Revelation 3:3. I will give you one image if you can quote that one. No? The day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Okay. Anyways. But everything in this has some relation to my childhood, but it's not obvious, which I like. And a lot of people, I send it out there, and people see different things in them. Like, oh, this means that. And I'm like, I don't tell people what they are. It's like, yeah, that sounds good. A few people who went to art school had better interpretations of them than my original one. I'm going to start using that one. So there's only one thing I wanted to finish with. Just want to show you something that I've been kind of sitting on the back burner for a while with. Just going to show you what work in progress, for me at least, looks like. This is that guy who was laughing earlier. He does a balloon show where he blows up a big balloon and gets inside it. And I did all these portraits of him. It's just so ridiculous. I feel like I like that he looks distressed in there. That's one of those things I got. Someday I'll have to finish that. It's him coming out. But I feel like there's, sometimes you do these shots and they're so great, but it's I don't even know. And would they even fit in the portfolio? And do I care? I don't know. But that's my work.
So I'm curious. You did a lot of work with film. Do you look back nostalgically? Do you miss anything about film? How do you see that?
Only in the way that you didn't have to think as much about the look in the end because it was baked in. Yep. You get a film stock that's warm or whatever, contrasty, and the image comes out and it's warm, contrasty, and there's not a whole lot you can do with that. Digital, you have all the choices under the sun. Yep. But I don't miss having some scanner's fingerprints on my stuff. You didn't do that, Alejandro, I appreciate that. But I used to do tons of stock, and I would spend half my time getting fingerprints or some issues from the scan out of it. Yep. And I don't miss that. But I love the control. I've taken a lot of time learning Photoshop, and I just, I love that you can just take it as a raw image and just push and pull, and it can go all over the place. So I would like a candle that smelled like Fixer. That'd be nice. They make those.
Oh, okay. For your personal projects, what do you value the most? The moment, the light, or the composition? And if this define your style?
Yeah, well, all those things really. I mean, the lighting is extremely important. The main thing for me is they're always. I think I've always been stuck on this idea that once I had this established portfolio that I liked, anything that goes in there needs to fit. And it can fit, it's like a Venn diagram. All three things can fit: composition, lighting, and the mood. Or just, is one enough? That's a tough one. I mean, you think of something really, just a straight up, like a lot of those celebrities, it's like 3-point lighting. That's like the most basic thing. That's the first lighting you learn. But it's all in the face. It's in what they're giving you. So, yeah, you think of Avedon's photos. Those are they're not all like, wow, the lighting's crazy. It's very clean, beautifully done, expressive. And nobody says, oh, you didn't know lighting. It's Does it really matter? I don't know. But yeah, I like to mix it all together. If there's cool light, that makes me more excited.
Hi, Matt. I hear some photographers talk about controlling their subject when they're taking portraits. So I was interested to hear about what the differences are, how you approach stars versus the people on the street, and which one do you enjoy the most?
I don't control too much. I mean, there's things body positioning. Even with the stars, I would try to give them the, motivation and the scene. Like a lot of them just hated being out of character, being photographed. Actually, I have a list of them who had a hard time. Like Paul Giamatti just couldn't stand it. He just hated it. And so I was like, okay, just I'm on your land, and you give me that get off my land look. And like everyone knows that, The guy from The Sopranos, I'm blanking on his name. Giamatti, who died. Like he was very uncomfortable. I photographed him a number of times. I mean, you could see the sweat. This is a big, scary guy, and he just hated it because he's out of character. And I would try that with him, but he's like, last time I photographed him, he was just visibly upset. I was surprised he showed up. And I could hear him under his breath saying, I fucking hate this. I was like, I just need a smile, man. But in terms of like the star or the regular people, I treat them all the same way. But sometimes with the star, like you can you'll know right away whether or not they're gonna take it. Like some of them are like, this is my look. And they're nice about it. They have the assistant come later to delete the stuff. But they're nice about it, So, with the regular people, I love just seeing what I get from a regular person. Like, I'm getting more. I think when I first started here, I was really more like, okay, just smile or whatever. But now I'm getting more into like kind of posing more and bringing lights into it, which is fun. It's just random people, and you make something out of them. That's crazy fun, especially when it works. Oh, yes, please.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for coming to speak to us today.
Thank you.
This kind of goes along the same lines of a little bit of what we were talking about, but when I've spoken to photographers who particularly do portraits, there is sometimes like almost like a spiel or like some sort of language that they feel comfortable using to talk about the direction that they want to take the person that they're photographing with. And so how do you maintain that level of control and collaboration? Do you have any specific techniques that you use or specific languages type things that you use when it comes to that stuff?
Well, I certainly have some stock phrases I use. I do a lot of corporate work, and those are people who just want to get out the room, and there's a number of stupid jokes. Most of it is just making people comfortable. I do my best Oprah without hugging, and just try to get them relaxed, because most people walk into a photo session, if they've never done it, they're horrified. They're like at the dentist. So whatever you can do to break that down and say, like, this is going to be fun. Don't worry, like we're working together. Look at the monitor. If you don't like it, I'm going to fix it. That kind of thing. But if it's like more personal or evocative photo, then that's like a different conversation where you kind of tell them the feeling you want, and it can be a longer talk, but it's always a conversation. I do a lot of talking. I do a lot of listening, probably more listening than talking, and just express interest in people. I'm very interested normally, but that's a huge plus for me. It's just to break it down, because most people don't get peppered with questions, especially in New York. You get just monologued. So if you act genuinely interested, then you can make a connection, and then hopefully they'll open up to do whatever you need to do. But does that close? Okay.
So Matt, thank you for sharing your photos.
Oh, thank you.
So I have two questions. The first one is, what, in your opinion, makes a good portrait of anyone?
That's a winner. Yeah. Is he a tilde or is he a...
Tilde.
That's a good, well, I don't want to judge.
Um,
That's a good question. You get to pick a picture.
So what, I think resonance of a sort where like you can, if the picture stays with you, you know, if you look at it and half an hour later you can remember it. You know, we get so many photos coming by, and if you feel like you're looking into somebody and it just grabs you, you know, like this Tilda Swinton, which you might now own. Like, this is her, she gave this to me. Like, I did very little other than I posed her a little bit. I had the lighting, I was ready. But, you know, she was going to do this. And I've seen other people's copies of versions of this, like, but she's the other way. I think Dan Winters has one where she's the other way, and I looked at it and I was like, is that mine? But she made her green and all that. But just that directness that she does naturally, but other people need to be coaxed into it. That, I think, is the main thing. Like Avedon's bee guy. You know, it's a weird picture of a guy with bees, but his look and his calmness, it just brings you in there, and you stay there, I think, so.
Yeah. So the second question is, so do you have any like direction you want to go in the future with your portrait work?
I just want to keep going in the same direction. I feel like my career is like a barge, you know, the portfolio is what I use to turn the thing. Like if I'm doing a lot of stuff I don't want to do, I start doing more, fill the book with stuff I do want to do and try to get it going that way so people think, oh, he's not the reportage guy, he's the portrait guy. So I want to step out of the studio a little bit more because I feel I'm getting a little pigeonholed in there, and just bring my lighting out with me and that kind of more lifestyle-y stuff. That's what my agent would like me to do because there's more work in it. So, but that's true. Any other questions? I was promised about Cooley questions.
I gave you one.
Oh, you did?
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.